World Bank projects Nigeria's growth to rebound by 1.1% in 2021, while global economy expands by 4%. Nigeria to receive 100,000 doses of Pfizer vaccine before the end of month. President Buhari seeks more Chinese support for infrastructure. And Business Express focuses on global economic prospects released by the World Bank. All these and more on the program reaching you from Abuja, Nigeria's capital. I am Muplang Dakok. So good to always have you tuned to Business Express. Contrary to reports in some section of the media on the approval for 50% increase in electricity tariff, the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission (NEC) says no approval has been granted to electricity distribution companies for such increase in the tariff order, which took effect from 1st January 2021. However, in compliance with the provisions of the Electric Power Sector Reform Act and the nation's tariff methodology for biannual minor review, the rates for service bands A, B, C, D, and E have been adjusted from 2 naira to 4 naira per kilowatt to reflect the partial impact of inflation and movement in foreign exchange rates. The Commission restates that the tariff for customers who are being served less than the average of 12 hours per day over a period of 1 month remain frozen and subsidized in line with the policy direction of the federal government. The World Bank says global economy is expected to expand by 4% in 2021 if vaccine deployment becomes widespread throughout the year and policymakers move decisively to tame the pandemic and implement investment-enhancing reforms. This was contained in the Global Bank's January 2021 Global Economic Prospects released on Tuesday. Although the global economy is growing again after a 4.3% contraction in 2020, the pandemic has caused a heavy toll of deaths and illness, plunged millions into poverty, and may depress economic activity and incomes for a prolonged period. To support economic recovery, the World Bank says authorities also need to facilitate a reinvestment cycle aimed at sustainable growth that is less dependent on government debt. Nigeria's economy is expected to grow at 1.1% in 2021 from the estimated 4.1% contraction in 2020 and would further grow to 1.8% in 2022. World Bank Group President David Malpass is of the view that to overcome the impact of the pandemic and counter the investment headwind, there needs to be a major push to improve business environments, increase labor and product market flexibility, and strengthen transparency and governance. Meanwhile, Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 says Nigeria will receive 100,000 doses of Pfizer vaccine before end of January 2021. This was made known Tuesday during the PTF briefing.
We expect to receive approximately 100,000 doses of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine by the end of January.
PTF is appealing to health professionals, the media and opinion shapers in the country to educate Nigerians on the safety of vaccines and the need to disregard conspiracy theories. Meanwhile, the Nigeria-China Intergovernmental Committee has been formalized to address issues hampering mutual cooperation for development among the two nations. Usman Aliu has details.
The Asian superpower and the Africa's economic giant meet to formalize new deals for much more mutual benefits on cooperation. The Chinese, now a major force in building the economy of Africa, is again changing history in the continent on trade, technology and loans to fund infrastructure, and it says it will ensure equality in the renewed relations. That means these bilateral talks is to address many of these challenges of development which Nigeria is facing in her efforts to diversify the economy. But at present, export of agricultural produce from Nigeria to China is very difficult because of high tariff. For instance, peanut and sesame attract between 70 to 50% tariff, the burden which is unbearable for farmers to gain value for the produce. These are some of the issues which the Nigeria-China Intergovernmental Committee is expected to look into.
We analyze global affairs as well, the support of each other, reciprocal support in multilateral organizations, and our joint efforts to ensure, a stable, fair global system.
Dealing with COVID-19 is also of interest here.
With the vaccine discoveries now, China is also one of those countries that has been able to develop vaccines for COVID, and so we're also engaging with China to also help with regards to access to vaccines.
The aviation industry is backing on the proposed COVID-19 vaccine to stimulate recovery faster than earlier envisaged, but experts are suggesting that in order to turn threat into opportunities in 2021, domestic airline operators must harness cargo services to augment loss while exploring the possibility of night operations at the nation's airports. Michael Olaleye reports.
With an estimated 7.3 million passengers passing through the Murtala Muhammed International Airport in 2019, the foundation for growth in the coming years was already built. But tragedy struck in form of COVID-19 and necessitated the grounding of flight operations. Millions of jobs lost, but the ray of hope is that man has found a way to fly again. In the midst of this, the survival of the industry has become a topical issue, and experts are optimistic that 2021 is the year that the aviation industry will rediscover its glorious days.
Go public. Let the airlines go public. If you can go public and get a little bit of technical assistance, as most of these countries we are even trying to hail, like Emirates.
They say establishing new markets for airline carriers must be backed up with rebates and waivers.
One is to open a special window for the airlines and to access the foreign exchange, which should be much lower than the prevailing black market rate. Also, I think it is time for the agencies and other service providers, especially those owned by government, to begin to work out waivers, subsidies, and reduction in charges.
The light at the end of the tunnel is that we have a vaccine. And with that vaccine, we hope the recovery will be expedited, meaning that the growth, or the going back to the passenger level pre-COVID will come sooner than later.
Stakeholders are optimistic that the future is bright, and the aviation industry remains the only vehicle for stimulating the anticipated growth in the midst of COVID-19.
The aviation industry has been virtually grounded by COVID-19, and recovery has been muted in most markets due to travel restrictions, deep recession, weak consumer confidence, and the second wave of lockdowns are hampering the recovery process. Joining me to discuss the latest World Bank projections on global growth as well as prospects in the aviation sector is an aviation consultant and economist, Tayo Ojuri, managing partner Agro Aviation. It's a pleasure to have you, Mr. Ojuri, on Business Express today.
Good afternoon and Happy New Year to you.
Thank you. The World Bank projects Nigeria's growth to rebound by 1.1% in 2021, while global economy is to expand by 4%. These projections are predicated on widespread vaccination. Tell us the impact of these vaccines on global economy.
Thank you very much. The vaccine would actually help, but it's there's still lots of on things that are not confirmed yet. Because of the second wave and because of the high negative impact of the second wave, we're still not sure, unfortunately. The World Bank projection was well before we started having the intensity of the second wave. With the second wave now, what we've seen in the last 2 weeks is everything is up in the air. Up in the air in terms of projections, up in the air in terms of airline operations, because now you have lots of countries, rather than having a layered single approach system to curtail the second wave, lots of countries are implementing protocols to curtail the spread. For example, you have the shutdown in Europe. Sorry, specifically in the UK, you had 2 weeks ago, last week precisely, where 40 countries actually closed their borders and flights to UK due to that new strain. You have the Tier 3 in South Africa. So with all those different approaches and protocols that's affecting flights, international flights, that's going to restrict and actually hamper lots of flights within the first and second quarter. Even though World Bank has said, yes, we're going to grow at 1.1%, if we bring that home to Nigeria, with the recession that we're technically in recession, and we're looking at exiting recession in the second quarter, coupled with the microeconomic indicators, we do not think that the passenger traffic would actually move or have significant traction till last quarter of 2021.
According to that report, recovery in Nigeria is expected in this quarter. Are we in the right path to achieving that?
Unfortunately, no. Why so? Aviation is a function of disposable income. Disposable income, government is the biggest spender in Nigeria. Government has restricted lots of travel. There's no conferences. Even the level of people and civil servants and public servants that need to go to work have been restricted till the end of first quarter. So that all affects the propensity to fly. Once, with all these restrictions and the implication of lots of people getting very comfortable with technology as a means of communication and doing business, that's actually going to affect travel, and it's going to not let the passenger numbers move up. As with the passenger numbers not moving up, that's going to affect the growth within the aviation sector for first quarter.
Right, Mr. Ojiri, in just one sentence, tell me, if you were to give one solution to global economic growth, what would that solution be? In one sentence.
In one sentence is to make people more aware and be safety conscious. When we're able to actually curtail COVID, we're able to return to normal.
All right. Airlines have been cutting costs substantially, but cash burn continues with net losses running into billions. Can you quantify the level of losses so far globally and also Nigeria's share? And then, based on the World Bank projection, what will these figures mean to global economy? That's the talking about aviation figures. What will they mean for global economy?
I'm going to marry the World Bank numbers with the IATA and ICAO numbers, whereby last year aviation globally lost $118 billion. With the cash burn as at today, there's an expected $2 million net loss in 2021. To bring that home to Nigeria, we're looking at, for every passenger that we carry today, there's a $72 loss for that operation. So we are burning cash at a very high level. What does that affect? How does that now affect the domestic airlines? There's the risk of debt, bankruptcy, and the challenge of survival, even post-COVID. So what is the solution to this? The solution to this, as we've seen globally and bringing that home, is having what you call the palliative or a structured financial palliative or assistance to these airlines, either through government, through structured loans, or through guaranteed loans, guaranteed sovereign loans, which has been done with British Airways, getting about £2 billion in the last week, as well as Air France KLM being restructured for post-COVID flight operations. This is going to help the airlines survive post-COVID, because as we know it today, things are going to change post-COVID, and with the second wave, things are still up in the air.
Okay, in the year that just ended, 2020, we saw air cargo supporting global supply chains. That's to show that there's hope of recovery as much as the one we had in 2019. But same cannot be said for air travels. What is the reason for the difference?
Specifically, we actually had an 8% air cargo. Air cargo was not, it was the only one that was on scratch. So it was good news. I was not all gloomy news for us in aviation. Air cargo was 8% increase. And what was the driver for that? The drivers were based and predicated based on the need. During the lockdown, we still needed to move goods, emergency supplies, food, lots of COVID-19 relief materials. So all these things needed to be moved across borders, across nations. So that was actually a force for good, which aviation was used for, and it actually helped cargo actually move. Now people are getting comfortable with that means of transportation, and logistics business is actually grown with COVID-19. So it's something that airlines are trying to leverage on, especially within Nigeria, as well as globally. You had a lot of airlines convert their passenger aircraft into freighter aircraft. And we've seen a lot of configuration of passenger aircraft being configured into cargo aircraft. So we're seeing a future growth in cargo movement due to the need and due to new norm for post-COVID.
All right. Nigeria is expecting 100,000 doses of the vaccines, talking about Pfizer vaccines, before the end of January. How significant do you think this is going to be on air travels?
This is going to be very significant, but let's look at the rudiments, which is the fundamental of, we have a challenge of relative warehouse storage facilities, because the vaccines have to be within temperate conditions. So with that being said, is to ensure that the infrastructure is available to be able to store, and the logistics to transport those COVID-19 vaccines across Nigeria. Once that is available, we're able to ensure that the vaccine is actually being distributed and effectively for the use of people, so that it actually still has its efficiency when it gets to when it's been applied and when it's being given to people. So once that is done, that's able to curtail that vaccine, the spread of COVID-19, and that's actually going to increase the propensity of people to travel and give them a lot of comfort, because people are a bit scared about traveling for the fear of catching COVID on either through the airport or through the aircraft. So with the vaccine, people are going to travel more, in my opinion.
so much, Mr. Tayo Ojuri, and we apologize that we had to end the program on that note. And so with this, we end this edition of Business Express. Be informed that all previous episodes are available on YouTube on NTA's channel. You can communicate with us on Twitter. The handle is @NTA News Now, and the hashtag is BizX. Business Express returns Thursday at 9:30 a.m. I am Muplang Dakok.